All right, let's go ahead and get started today. I'm starting down here because I wanted to show you some things related to the SBL Handbook that I talked about on Monday before we get into some of the things that we're going to focus on today. Don't forget that the sources assignment is due tomorrow, so make sure to have that completed. Instructions are on Blackboard. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. So, as I mentioned on Monday, the SBL Handbook of Style is the manual of style for the College of Biblical Studies. But you don't have to rush out and get a copy of it. There are, of course, copies in the library, physical copies, but there are also is also an electronic copy as well. And so you can have access to that. That would be very helpful. So just go to the library's website, search for SBL Handbook, and then click on electronic resources. And then you can either choose a specific chapter to look at. The chapters that are going to be most useful to you are going to be Chapter 6 and Chapter 8. Those are the ones that are most important. Some of the others relate more to if you're actually publishing a journal article or publishing a book. Chapter 4 has a little bit that might be helpful as far as general style and some things related to punctuation, word usage, those kind of things. But Chapter 6 is the one that's going to be most useful to you because it is the one that goes into the discussion of how to cite sources. And so Chapter 6, as you look down through, as I mentioned, if you when you go to work on your citation, you want to go down through and look for the type of source that you have. Do you have a book by a single author, book by 2 or 3 authors? Do you have a book with an editor? And so looking down through the table of contents or the contents in Chapter 6 will help you. Journal article, etc. So once you determine what you are looking for, then you go to the appropriate page. Now obviously, we're going to take some time here in just a little bit just to go through and talk about how to do the citation. But if you're unsure or if it's something we didn't discuss, then the SBL Handbook is a good resource for that. So once you discover what you're looking for, right, we're going to just use a book. So I've come to 6.2, and I have a book by a single author. They provide me here an example that I then am going to use, right? So the author appears first, then the title of the work, in parentheses, the place of publication, the publisher, the date, and then the page number that I'm specifically citing. And so while I'm not using Charles Talbert's Reading John, I can then use, okay, so who's the author of my book? What's the name of my book? Where was it published? Who is the publisher, the date, etc. And so you just figure out what source you're trying to cite. And then follow the example. Most commentaries are going to fit in with a work in a series. And so that's predominantly where you're going to want to look when you look for commentaries. If you're doing an electronic book, some things to note there. Specifically, if you're using a book like this, like the SBL Handbook, where the pages would match up with the print, you don't really do anything differently than you would if you were using another book. But if you use something that's on a Kindle or a Nook where the pages don't necessarily line up, then you need to put like Kindle edition, or if you're using a Nook edition. That way you have that way that whoever's reading it knows that this is different.
What's the little number in front? I guess that's 3 and 21.
Oh, that would be like, remember we do footnotes, and so this would be, if, for example, note 21.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, so that would be whatever footnote number it is. So don't just put a random number in there. Yeah, so that's the footnote. Journal articles, also in here as well. And so again, we'll talk more and go through this in more detail. But I wanted to show you that and how to use that in order to, in case there's anything we didn't specifically talk about. All right, so let's now get into talking about specifics and how to do specific citations. We're going to cover a wide variety of mouse slipped up. Excuse me here 1 second. We're going to talk about a wide variety of sources. I hope to hit most of the ones that you are likely to come in contact with. So this should provide you with a good amount of work, or a good amount of preparation, where you can just refer to your notes here and be okay. So let's start with some of the major ones. First of all, a book. As you'll note on the screen, there are essentially two major types of citation that you will be doing. Predominantly, you should be using footnotes, but in some cases you might be doing an endnote. Either way, they follow the same format. Inside the paper, as you do your footnote, you will have one type of citation. In your bibliography, which is the works that you use, the works cited page that will appear at the end, you include the same information but in a slightly different order. So, for a book, in your note, your footnote, right, you let's say quoted something, you put an insert footnote or insert reference, and a book follows this order. First name, if there is a middle initial, then that would, of course, you want to include that. The last name. Right? So standard order, first name, last name. Comma, and then you should italicize or underline, but italics is preferred, the title. Most academic books, most scholarly books, are going to have a main title with a colon and then some sort of subtitle. Right? So all of that should be in italics. Then in parentheses, the city of publication. Predominantly you just need the city unless it is an obscure city, or if there would be some sort of confusion as to which city it would be. In that case, you might use a state or a country, but predominantly you're going to be using cities. Because most of the publishing houses are in places like London, Oxford, New York, places like that. And then a lot of the university presses are in cities that are well known anyway. Right? So predominantly you just need the city of publication. City publication, colon, the publisher, comma, the date, end parenthesis, comma, and then whatever page number you're citing. When you do your endnote, or excuse me, when you do your footnote, the first line is going to be indented. And then it's going to be, the second line, of course, will be flush with the left margin. In the bibliography, same information, slightly different format. Instead of first name, it's last name, comma, first name, followed by a period. The title of the work, again, in italics, followed by a period, no parentheses, the city, colon, publisher, comma, the date. In this case, with a book, when you cite it in your bibliography, you do not need the page number. The page number only appears in the footnote. The bibliography, as well, is going to be a hanging indent, meaning that your first line is flush with the left margin, and your second line, if there is one, is indented. You should be able to do that very easily on your word processing program. You just kind of highlight it and then select in your paragraph format so they're hanging. It'll automatically do all that for you. The other thing with your bibliography is your bibliography is going to include all the works you cited, and you want to remember that you alphabetize them by last name. All right? So it's not in the order that you use them, it's in the alphabetical order of the last name. The footnotes, however, are in the order that you use them. So let's look at that's books. Are there any questions, anything I need to describe? I think pretty much it should come up there pretty
Is there
quick.
a certain font and size?
You should keep it as the same font and size that you use in your paper. All right? There's no need to have a smaller font. Sometimes your word processing program might default to a smaller size. That's fine if you leave it like that, or if you just put it at the same size as the other. But just whatever you're using in your paper is fine. Probably, the other thing is that probably your paper is going to be double-spaced. Your footnotes should be single-spaced. They don't need to be double-spaced. All right, books. Another main type of source you're going to be using are journal articles. Couple similarities in that you use in the footnote first name, last name, right? In bibliography, last name, first name, but some differences as well. All right. So in footnote first name, last name, you're going to have the title of your journal article. Okay? So you need the title of the article that you're using. That title is in quotation marks. Right, so the interesting title of the journal article, followed by a comma, right, and quotation marks. Then the journal title italicized. Now, here's one of the odd things about SBL. SBL, in your journal articles, encourages the use of abbreviations for the journal title. It's not just up to you, though. This is a place where you will need to refer to the SBL Handbook. So let me show you this. In Chapter 8 of the SBL Handbook are the abbreviations. Now it gives the abbreviations of a variety of things, state abbreviations, periods of time, technical abbreviations, etc. Abbreviating ancient texts, manuscripts, versions of the Bible, books of the Bible, other ancient texts. Early Christian texts. lots and lots of abbreviations. The abbreviation section is not abbreviated. But somebody got that. I mean, there's a lot of ancient texts out there that are used by scholars, and so that's why this is so long. I wish there was a way that you could, in the electronic version, get more quickly to where we need to go. Maybe, but now we're where I need to get to. All right. So, what you need to do with your abbreviations for both journal titles and commentaries is in 8.4.1, it gives you alphabetized by source. So you find the source that you're looking for, and it will tell you what the abbreviation is. So let's just say we're looking for the journal Church History. So I'm looking through the alphabetical, and then I find Church History. This one, right, is simply Church History, right, is CH. So if you were citing an article from Church History in your footnote, you would, instead of writing Church History, you would write CH, where it was appropriate for the journal title. Now, otherwise, though, it's not always like that, where you can just use the first letter of each word. Medieval studies, MS, all right, that's kind of good. But Melita Theologica, it would be MELT. Restoration Quarterly is ResQ. Right? And so there are abbreviations that you need to use, not just kind of make it up on your own.
So you have to do that then?
Yes. All right. And so you would need to look up your journal title or your commentary series to find what the abbreviation should be.
We're just going to search that? Or?
Yeah. So you can just pull it up in the SBL Handbook, the electronic version, like I just had up there, which is available through the library's website. You might find it if you just did a Google search. I don't know if you can find like a listing of SBL abbreviations. That might be possible. But again, you have electronic access to the SBL Handbook. All right, so first name, last name, the title of your article in quotation marks, the abbreviation of the journal title, the volume number, the year, colon, the year in parentheses, colon, the page number. That's the information you need for the footnote. In the bibliography, again, same kind of thing, last name, comma, first name, middle initial, if appropriate. There should be a period there. I missed that. Interesting title in quotation marks, but instead of the comma here, period here. In general, what's a comma in your footnote should be a period in your bibliography.
What do you mean by interesting title?
But whatever the title is, right? I'm just saying, as an example, your interesting title, right? And so journal articles will have a title. We'll use some specific examples here in a little bit. Okay. But so whatever the title is of the article, must be there in quotation marks. The journal title is spelled out, and the bibliography, the volume number, the year, and then all of the page numbers of the journal article. Right? So in your footnote, you're probably just citing one page. In your bibliography, it should have all the pages of the article. All right. So if you're just citing, let's say, page 53, and you have quotations, so you're citing page 53 in your footnote. In the bibliography, you would want to have like 48 through 65. Other questions about journal articles? All right, last one we'll look at here before we go to some examples
are commentaries.